You're tuned in to Beyond the Known.
In 1984, a remote viewer working under a classified CIA program was handed sealed coordinates, the target, Mars, but not as it is today, as it was a million years ago. The viewer described massive pyramidal structures, towering thin beings, and a planet racked by catastrophe, a dying world, a mass exodus, a memory, or a psychic glimpse of a forgotten truth. What if Mars was once not a planet at all, but a moon caught in a solar system-shaking event? What if the Kuiper Belt, the frozen expanse at the edge of our solar system, isn't just a field of comets, but the shattered remains of a world that once harbored life?
Welcome. Today we're diving into one of the really big questions about our solar system. We pulled together some fascinating material, scientific papers, but also historical records, even ancient texts.
Right.
And we're exploring this truly astonishing idea that there might have been a lost world, something that dramatically, violently reshaped our entire cosmic neighborhood. So get ready to challenge what you thought you knew about the planets orbiting our sun. Because the story we're about to piece together, well, it suggests a truth far more dramatic, maybe more ancient and perhaps more profound than anything you'll find in a standard textbook.
Indeed. I mean, the standard narrative, the one we're all taught about how our solar system formed, it's well established, isn't it? It's sort of a comforting story, you know. Slow, gradual accretion, cosmic dust, just patiently clumping together over billions of years.
Right, very neat and tidy.
Exactly. But when you start to connect the dots, when you look at various astronomical anomalies, things that don't quite fit, and then you look at these recurring patterns in ancient mythology from all over the world, well, a different picture starts to emerge, a much more dramatic one.
And that's what's so compelling here, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
How these seemingly disconnected observations, things that science has kind of explained away as, isolated incidents,
One-offs.
they might actually be pieces of a much larger forgotten event. Really makes you ask, are we truly seeing the complete picture? Or is there a suppressed truth just waiting to be uncovered? A cosmic secret that's been whispered through the ages, and maybe, just maybe, it's finally breaking through the static now.
And what a secret that could be.
So let's start this journey. Imagine heading out, way out to the very edges of our solar system, far beyond Neptune. You're entering this realm of perpetual twilight, unimaginable cold. This is where our cosmic detective story begins. The Kuiper Belt.
That vast, icy frontier.
Exactly. Astronomers describe it as this huge donut-shaped region stretching way out into the blackness. It's home to countless frozen bodies, including dwarf planets we know, like Pluto and Eris.
Scientifically, the standard view is that it's just leftovers, right?
Right. Teeming with small, icy remnants, the supposed leftovers from the early solar system's formation. They classify it into two main groups. The classical KBOs, Kuiper Belt objects, usually between about 38 and 55 AU, astronomical units. And they orbit pretty flat, low inclination, like the main planets.
Okay.
And then you have the excited KBOs. They stretch out further, maybe 25 to 60 AU, but their orbits are much more tilted, higher inclination. It's like they're tumbling around the sun.
So not all behaving the same way out there.
Not at all. And our research shows these groups actually have different characteristics.
Yeah.
Distinct luminosity functions, different size distributions. It hints that they weren't all formed from the same, perfectly smooth cloud.
Yeah.
It suggests different origins or maybe different evolutionary paths than the standard model likes to think.
Interesting.
It's this silent, mysterious expanse. Extremely cold, about 50 Kelvin, so things like methane and ammonia are frozen solid. But what if that quiet is hiding something? A violently active past, a kind of cosmic crime scene, frozen in time.
Precisely. Because while mainstream science tends to just label the Kuiper Belt as primordial debris, the stuff left in the attic after the house was built.
Yeah, the unused bricks.
Exactly. A far more provocative idea has emerged from our research. What if this isn't just leftover material? What if it's actually the vast, sprawling debris field of a planet that was destroyed?
Wow, a whole destroyed planet.
Fringe theories sometimes give it names like maldek or phaeton, and they suggest a profoundly different history, one rooted in, cosmic drama. Our esoteric research, for instance, paints maldek not just as a lump of rock, but as a physical place designed for spiritual recuperation, like a sanctuary.
Sanctuary? For who?
For advanced beings, apparently, beings with heightened spiritual sensitivity. But the story goes that, tragically, this world, it collapsed. Not from an outside force, but due to its own societal vulnerability, a deep loss of harmony that led to a catastrophic self-inflicted end.
So it destroyed itself.
That's the narrative in some of these texts. So think about the implications then. What if we're not just looking at cosmic dust out there? What if we're essentially looking at a planetary graveyard, a stark reminder of a cosmic catastrophe that echoed through our whole reality?
A planetary graveyard. That phrase just, it hits hard. And when you look closer at the Kuiper Belt itself, you start seeing details that, well, they make that idea seem less crazy, almost like the universe is leaving clues for us.
Like what?
Well, for instance, our research highlights how common binary objects are among KBOs. At least 10% are close binaries.
So pairs of objects orbiting each other.
Exactly. Not just two rocks drifting past each other, but gravitationally bound pairs, often with similar makeup, orbiting a common center. And you have to ask, how could these stable pairs survive intact if this region was just pure chaos during formation?
Good point. Especially the close ones.
And even more striking, 3 of the 4 largest known KBOs, that's Eris, Pluto, and Haumea, they all have satellites. Moons. Pluto obviously has Charon, which is huge, nearly half its size.
Right.
But it also has smaller ones, Nix and Hydra, orbiting in almost the same plane.
Delicate systems.
Very delicate. The fact that these interconnected systems exist in a region supposedly formed from just random, chaotic clumping, it's a subtle clue, maybe, but it feels powerful. It doesn't quite fit the simple leftover dust model.
And then there's the really baffling thing, the Kuiper cliff.
Oh, yes, the cliff. Explain that.
It's this truly bewildering feature. You go out past about 47, maybe 50 AU, and suddenly the number of objects just plummets, a dramatic drop-off.
Just stops.
Pretty much. Our research confirms this abrupt decline, especially for objects 100 kilometers or more across. It's absolutely real. And mainstream science, honestly, they don't have a definitive explanation.
Then what are the standard theories, though?
Well, they try. Maybe material was just too scarce out there for big things to form. Or maybe objects got cleared out somehow, destroyed or ejected. Or maybe even a close pass by another star billions of years ago truncated the disk.
Okay, possibilities.
But the alternative theory we're exploring here, that a substantial body, maybe Mars-size, used to be in that region and was involved in some cataclysmic event, that offers a single dramatic explanation for why the belt seems to just end there.
The explosion or destruction created the edge.
Potentially. And while we talk about planetary migration, Neptune moving outward, stirring things up, explaining some of the excited orbit.
Right, Neptune's gravity pushing things around.
Yes, but it doesn't fully account for all the fine details, or, crucially, the sheer lack of mass out there. The Kuiper Belt only has about 0.1% of the mass we'd expect based on the objects we see. There's a staggering amount of primordial material just missing.
Where did it go?
Exactly. This isn't just cosmic dust we're talking about. It feels more like a monumental scar, a profound testament to an event so huge it reshaped the very architecture of our solar system, emptying vast regions. The question really isn't if something big happened, but what was it? And what does its legacy truly mean for us?
Speaking of monumental scars and missing pieces, let's bring our focus inward now, towards a world that's much closer, much more familiar, but maybe just as enigmatic. A world that has absolutely haunted human imagination for centuries. Mars.
The red planet.
It just sits there, doesn't it?
Yeah.
This desolate, reddish orb. It's barren, lifeless. But if you look closely, if you examine its really peculiar physical features, you start hearing these whispers. Whispers of a violent, tumultuous past.
Like what features?
Well, its atmosphere, for one, it's incredibly thin. Almost non-existent compared to Earth's. That's a stark contrast to what you might expect for a planet its size. Where did it all go? And then there's Valles Marineris, that geological scar. It's so massive it makes our Grand Canyon look like a scratch. It stretches thousands of miles across the Martian surface, a canyon system so vast it looks like it almost tore the planet's face apart.
A truly colossal feature.
And our research points to these striking differences in its crust. One whole hemisphere, the northern plains, looks completely different from the southern highlands. They're separated by this huge cliff, a scarp about 2 kilometers high. It's almost as if one side of the planet suffered some kind of catastrophic ablation, like something scraped off the surface.
Wiped clean on one side.
Some theories suggest exactly that heavy abrasion on one face, removing vast amounts of crust, leading to the huge magma plains we see there today. And then there are these really captivating observations suggesting ancient tidal bulges on Mars. Features reminiscent of a moon orbiting a much larger body.
Like it was stretched by gravity.
Precisely. And perhaps the most unsettling thing, reports of nuclear isotopes found in its soil. isotopes matching signatures from atomic weapons, hinting at a past catastrophe so profound it's almost beyond our comprehension. What if these aren't just geological quirks or atmospheric loss? What if they're direct, undeniable evidence of a forgotten cosmic trauma?
If we start connecting this back to the bigger picture we're trying to paint, these features stop looking like just geological curiosities, don't they? They start looking like direct evidence, undeniable evidence, perhaps, of a cosmic trauma on an unimaginable scale.
So where does that lead us?
It leads us to a bold, truly revolutionary suggestion. What if Mars wasn't always a planet in its own right? What if it once orbited that now destroyed Kuiper Belt planet Maldek as its moon?
Mars as a moon.
Imagine the sheer violence of that scenario, the destruction of its parent planet, that world perhaps racked by internal strife and collapse, as the esoteric texts suggest, could have violently ejected Mars from its orbit, hurled it into its current lonely path around the sun.
A cosmic orphan.
Exactly. This cataclysmic expulsion, this sort of traumatic birth into planetary independence, could explain so much. Mars's current desolate state, its mysteriously thin atmosphere, its unusual orbital characteristics, it's a runaway moon forever bearing the physical and maybe even atmospheric scars of its traumatic separation. A silent testament to a planetary parent it can no longer even remember.
Wow. A runaway moon. And the echoes, the potential echoes of that cataclysm, they might not stop with Mars itself, right? What about its own moons? Phobos and Deimos.
Tiny things, aren't they? Irregularly shaped.
For decades, the mainstream explanation has just been they're captured asteroids. Simple as that. And their shapes and compositions do resemble some asteroids, so it seems plausible.
Okay.
But then you look closer. Phobos orbits incredibly close to Mars, just 6,000 kilometers up. That's closer than many artificial satellites orbit Earth. Our research suggests it's so close, Mars's tidal forces are tearing it apart. It'll likely be shattered within the next 100 million years, forming a ring around Mars.
So it's decaying, falling apart.
Exactly. That rapid orbital decay, the weirdness of both moons, they're often described as maybe too small, too close to Mars to be stable long-term captures. It could fit another more dramatic story.
What
if they aren't just captured asteroids?
What else could they be?
What if they're fragments? The shattered remnants of a larger moon that Mars once had. Perhaps pieces left over from that catastrophic blast when Mars itself was traumatically ejected from its original parent world.
So debris from the main event.
It's a chilling thought, isn't it? That these tiny moons aren't just space rocks, but actual relics of an ancient solar system-shaking violence, orbiting a planet that is itself a cosmic orphan. Everything points back to this massive disruption.
And what's truly fascinating, what really strengthens this idea of a system-wide event, is that these anomalies, these oddities, they extend far beyond just Mars. You see peculiarities across the entire solar system.
It wasn't just contained to the outer regions or Mars.
Not necessarily. If we connect this to the bigger picture, it suggests that the destruction of Maldek, or whatever that lost planet was, wasn't an isolated incident. It was a cosmic upheaval that reverberated through the entire system, leaving marks on worlds that seem, on the surface, completely unrelated.
Okay, like what? Give us some examples.
Take Venus, our closest planetary neighbor, shrouded in clouds. Unlike almost every other planet, which spins on its axis in the same general direction it orbits the sun, Venus spins backwards.
Retrograde rotation.
Exactly. And it rotates incredibly slowly. A day on Venus is actually longer than its year. This peculiar, almost violent spin strongly suggests some past event powerful enough to fundamentally flip its orientation or drastically slow it down.
Something hit it, maybe? Or threw it off balance?
Something major. Then there's Uranus, way out in the ice giant region. It's truly an outlier. Its axial tilt is extreme 97.8 degrees. It's basically orbiting the sun on its side, like a bowling ball rolling down the lane instead of spinning like a top.
Lying on its side. That's bizarre.
It is, and our research indicates that to get such a drastic change in angular momentum, you need a massive impact, something maybe 7 times the mass of Earth hitting it at an astonishing speed, perhaps 100 kilometers per second. A truly colossal collision, far beyond just a typical bump in the early solar system.
Unbelievable force required.
And even Pluto, though we call it a dwarf planet now, it still has that highly elliptical, highly inclined orbit. It swings way above and below the main plane of the solar system. It doesn't follow the orderly paths of the major planets. It's almost as if it, too, was profoundly disturbed by some ancient gravitational shockwave.
It's like you said, the whole system got shaken up, like a cosmic billiards table after a really chaotic break shot.
Or
maybe maybe more like the aftermath of a cosmic war fought eons ago.
That's a powerful image. And look, mainstream science does have explanations for these things, usually involving giant impacts or gravitational tides during the early solar system's chaotic formation period.
The standard model explanations.
Right. And those are certainly plausible mechanisms in many cases. What if the truth is more unified, more profound? What if these aren't just isolated incidents, random bumps and gravitational nudges? What if they're interconnected signs of a single massive solar system-shaking cosmic upheaval? Perhaps the explosion of that lost planet we talked about, sending shockwaves and debris flying everywhere? Or a major planetary collision that sent ripple effects throughout the entire system?
One event causing multiple effects.
Possibly. Our research even highlights things like the different deuterium-hydrogen-DH ratios in the atmospheres of Uranus and Neptune. Think of DH like a chemical fingerprint. Ratios can suggest different origins or different histories. The variation could suggest that these ice giants once had much more extensive atmospheres that got partially stripped away during a close, maybe oblique encounter with something massive. Exactly the kind of violent, sweeping event that might happen during a system-wide cataclysm. It really challenges the tidy narrative and forces us to consider a much more dramatic, interconnected past.
And this idea connects to other models too, doesn't it? Models that suggest our solar system didn't always have just 8 planets.
That's right. Some models propose our initial solar system might have contained 6 major planets, plus maybe 2 additional ones, now lost, sometimes hypothesized with names like Bellona and Enyo, named after war goddesses, interestingly enough.
War goddesses. Fitting.
According to some theories, the collision products of these hypothetical lost planets could explain many of the features we still observe throughout our system today. It would have been a massive system-wide reordering event.
So a collision between 2 other planets could have caused all this.
It's a possibility that's explored, and our research indicates that planetary collisions, often resulting from something called orbital precession, that's the slow change in an orbit's orientation over long timescales, they are actually supported by detailed analysis. And importantly, by observations near other, younger stars. We see evidence of massive collisions happening around young stars, suggesting it might be a common, if violent, part of planetary evolution.
So it's not just pure speculation. It happens elsewhere.
It appears to. This isn't just making things up. It seems to be a pattern, a recurring motif of cosmic violence in the universe. It suggests our own solar system might have had a far more dynamic and destructive past than the gentle, standard story allows. The idea that these kinds of events might still be happening, or only recently stopped, near other stars, it really underscores the possibility that our own solar system isn't immune, and perhaps it still bears the lingering signatures of a grand, ancient upheaval. An upheaval so profound it left an imprint on the very geometry of our cosmic home.
And as we look even further out, back towards those dark, cold regions beyond Neptune, there's this contemporary scientific mystery that feels like it's almost destined to intersect with this ancient cosmic drama we're discussing. I'm talking about the allure of planetnine.
Planetnine, the current big mystery out there.
Exactly. And this isn't just a fringe idea anymore, is it? It's a very real, ongoing scientific search. It was ignited by compelling, observed data. Scientists noticed that the orbits of some extremely distant Kuiper Belt objects seem clustered, peculiarly aligned.
Like something is hurting them gravitationally.
Precisely. As if something massive, unseen, is pulling their orbits into alignment. This hypothesis, it's grounded in observed data. You have researchers at Caltech and other places actively booking time on major telescopes, scanning huge patches of the night sky. They're publishing their theories in proper peer-reviewed journals, like the Astronomical Journal. They are seriously looking for it.
It's a legitimate scientific quest.
Absolutely. And interestingly, many simulations trying to model the outer solar system, like the rogue planet model, the idea that a planet could have been ejected from elsewhere and captured by our sun, they often underpredict the number of these really distant trans-Neptunian objects, the TNOs. It hints that the outer solar system is more complex than we thought, and there's a deep mystery still surrounding it.
So the data suggests something's missing.
Right. And that begs the question, what if this elusive 9th planet is more than just a new discovery? What if it's connected? What if it's an echo, a fragment, maybe even a survivor of that ancient cataclysm we've been uncovering?
It's fascinating how the mainstream scientific search for planetnine sort of inadvertently opens the door to these deeper questions, isn't it? You get this convergence between rigorous astronomy and these more profound, maybe ancient possibilities.
Could it be more than just an undiscovered planet?
Exactly. What if it's the shattered core of that lost world, Maldek or Phaeton, or some other mysterious, gravitationally powerful remnant from that ancient cataclysm flung way out to the edge of the system?
Our research notes something interesting here. A hypothetical Mars-sized body, even if it's very dark, say 4% albedo, reflecting very little light if it was out at 70 AU, it should still be brighter than magnitude 20.
Meaning bright enough to have potentially been seen already. Possibly, especially if its orbit wasn't too steeply inclined. The fact that wide-field surveys haven't definitively found it yet is puzzling. It challenges the simple idea of just finding another planet and suggests maybe something more complex is going on, perhaps something incredibly dark or in a very unusual orbit or,
Right.
well, other possibilities.
And the speculation goes even further, doesn't it? Into more exotic territory.
Oh, absolutely. Some more fringe ideas, they push the boundaries. Could planetnine have artificial origins? Some colossal ancient structure or vessel parked out there for reasons unknown? Or maybe it's not a planet at all, but a brown dwarf, a failed star that passed close to our sun billions of years ago, gravitationally messing things up and maybe even donating some planetesimals to our system, leaving this lasting gravitational imprint we now detect as planetnine's influence.
Wild ideas. But the hunt itself is real.
The hunt for the unseen is definitely real, and it's fraught with challenges. We have to remember, previous searches for a planet X, like Percival Lowell's effort over a century ago, he was trying to explain perceived wobbles in Uranus and Neptune's orbits. They failed to find a large object. Pluto was discovered, yes, but it turned out to be far too small to cause the effects Lowell thought he saw.
So finding things out there is hard.
Incredibly hard. It's a cosmic game of hide and seek. And the detection challenge is immense. Think about a Mars-sized body out at, say, 55 to 75 AU. Its orbital speed would be incredibly slow across our sky, maybe between 0.001 and 0.003 degrees per day.
Barely moving at all.
Exactly. So slow it could easily have been mistaken for a stationary star or a faint galaxy in older surveys that didn't check the same spot repeatedly or weren't sensitive enough to its motion. Imagine trying to spot something crawling at that pace against a backdrop of billions of stars. It's like finding a specific needle in an ever-shifting galaxy-sized haystack.
It's essentially a ghost in the cosmic machine.
That's a good way to put it. Which is why the sensitivity of modern surveys like the Spacewatch project is so crucial. They re-image the same patch of sky every few nights. Our research shows their sensitivity to motion is maybe 20 to 60 times greater than older surveys. They're far more capable of detecting these incredibly elusive, slow-moving objects by spotting that tiny shift over time. We are quite literally searching for a phantom, a whisper of gravity from the edge of our known universe. And that whisper, it might just hold the key to a truth long hidden.
And sometimes the deepest truths, or at least the echoes of them, aren't just found by looking through telescopes. They might be preserved closer to home, in stories passed down through millennia. Which brings us to ancient myths. Could these narratives be preserving faint, maybe distorted memories of real cosmic battles and cataclysmic events?
It's a compelling avenue to explore. Take the Babylonian creation epic, the Enuma Elish. It's this incredibly dramatic story. It tells of Tiamat, this primordial goddess embodying chaos in the Salt Sea, and this fierce cosmic battle against Marduk, the powerful warrior god.
A battle of gods.
Right. Now, Zecharia Sitchin, he was a controversial figure known for his very unique, highly unconventional translations of ancient Sumerian and Akkadian clay tablets.
Controversial is putting it mildly for some people.
Indeed. But his interpretation was radical. He argued this wasn't just mythology. He saw it as an account of real planetary destruction. In his view, Tiamat wasn't just a goddess. She represented a massive planet. And her destruction by Marduk, maybe another celestial body or force, was the cataclysmic event that literally created Earth from one half of Tiamat and the asteroid belt from her other, shattered half.
So Earth and the asteroid belt are remnants of a destroyed planet, according to Sitchin.
That was his interpretation, yes. Now, our research notes his unique take on these texts. It's important to say most mainstream scholars, linguists, archaeologists, they view these epics primarily as metaphorical mythology, rich in symbolism about order versus chaos, the founding of civilization, but not literal astronomical history.
A very different reading.
Very different, yet. If Sitchin's interpretation, however controversial, holds even a shred of forgotten truth, it would mean our very home, Earth, is a fragment born from a cosmic collision. And there's another interesting piece here, often overlooked, the Titius Bode law.
Ah, the mathematical pattern in planet distances.
Exactly. This numerical sequence, discovered centuries ago, it remarkably predicted the distances of the known planets from the Sun with surprising accuracy. But it also predicted a planet in the gap between Mars and Jupiter where nothing was known at the time.
And then they found...
And then they found Ceres, right in that gap. Initially, they classified Ceres as the missing planet. Now we call it a dwarf planet, the largest object in the asteroid belt. But its discovery, right where the pattern predicted a planet should be. It feels like a testament, perhaps, that something was once there, something that filled that gravitational niche before its unfortunate demise.
It's true. When you dive into these ancient stories, these patterns, it's hard not to feel this resonance, this sense of connection to events that seem to defy our modern, neat understanding of the past.
Absolutely. But we do have to acknowledge the skepticism, of course. Interpreting mythology as literal history is problematic for mainstream science. Ideas like Nibiru, Sitchin's supposed 12th planet with a long elliptical orbit.
Yeah, the planet that's always supposedly just about to return.
Right. That idea is widely seen as inconsistent with basic celestial mechanics. NASA scientists, for example, point out quite reasonably that if a massive planet like Nibiru had flown through the inner solar system in Sumerian times, the gravitational disruption would have drastically altered Earth's orbit, probably ejected the moon entirely. And any large planet lurking beyond Pluto today would be easily observable even by amateur astronomers with decent equipment.
The physics just don't seem to work for that specific scenario.
Correct. However, putting aside specific debunked theories like Nibiru, what remains striking is how widespread these themes are. Global myths and folklore from cultures separated by vast oceans and millennia consistently depict celestial wars, heavenly battles, world-destroying cataclysms, and then subsequent rebirth or recreation. It's a recurring pattern.
All over the world.
All over the world. And our research into more esoteric texts also touches on things like global karmic patterns, collective consciousness. There's a strong belief in those circles that mythology isn't just fiction, but may preserve distorted or symbolic memories of real cosmic events, passed down not just through spoken stories, but maybe through some deeper, universal blueprint of experience, a collective memory.
This idea of collective memory, it's not just abstract, is it? There's potential physical evidence, too.
Possibly. Consider the anthropological findings. There's evidence for significant human population drops, major disruptions to early farming practices, right around 9500 BC. And this correlates rather eerily with geological evidence of a major cosmic impact event around the same time the Younger Dryas period. Specifically, scientists find layers with elevated levels of iridium, nanodiamonds, melt glass, classic signatures of an extraterrestrial impact.
The Younger Dryas impact hypothesis.
Exactly. A sudden, dramatic return to ice age conditions after a period of warming. This isn't just folklore anymore. This is hard, material evidence suggesting that large-scale cosmic events may indeed have profoundly influenced early human history, maybe even triggered cataclysms that got filtered into their earliest, most sacred stories, shaping their worldview, their cosmology, their understanding of the precarious place in the universe.
It forces you to ask, doesn't it? What if these myths aren't just primitive attempts to explain thunderstorms? What if they're profound, perhaps traumatized recollections, fragmented historical records passed down through generations of events that literally shaped our world, maybe even our consciousness, certainly our survival? Are we dismissing something vital by just labeling it all as myth?
Could we be ignoring a key to our own past?
And what if these echoes, these fragments of memory, aren't just buried in ancient texts or geological layers? What if they can be accessed more directly? Through, say, psychic glimpses into the past, accessing information beyond our normal five senses. Which brings us right back to where we started this whole exploration.
The 1984 remote viewing session.
Exactly. Under that classified CIA program, Project Stargate, which, let's remember, was a real U.S. Army unit operating from 1977 to 1995, tasked with investigating psychic phenomena for potential military and intelligence applications, probing whether remote viewing could actually work to gather information.
Spying with the mind, essentially.
That's the idea. And in this specific session, a remote viewer was given sealed coordinates. The target, Mars. But with that crucial instruction, not Mars today, but Mars a million years ago.
A million years.
And the details the viewer described, they were just extraordinary, delivered with this almost chilling clarity. Massive pyramidal structures suggesting advanced, intelligent construction, towering, thin beings implying a specific type of inhabitant, not human. A dying world racked by environmental catastrophe, and finally a mass exodus, A desperate flight from a doomed planet.
Wow, that's specific.
Incredibly specific. Now, these were supposedly just training targets for the Stargate team. But the coherence, the specificity, the sheer dramatic sweep of those visions, it's astounding. And it resonates so profoundly with the theories of lost civilization, a planetary cataclysm that we've been discussing.
It really does tie things together in a very strange way. But then, how do we even begin to interpret visions like that? Especially visions of a past that completely defies our current scientific understanding of Mars.
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Were
Oh,
they just psychic echoes, stray thoughts, a symbolic memory bubbling up from the subconscious? Or was it something deeper, a truly metaphysical phenomenon, tapping into something far beyond individual consciousness?
Our research into esoteric texts touches on concepts like the Akashic records, this idea that there's a kind of cosmic library, a vibrational record of everything that has ever happened, every thought, every event, accessible through certain states of consciousness. Could remote viewing be tapping into that?
Or maybe the collective unconscious, as Jung described it. Shared ancestral memories imprinted somehow on our species. Or even, as some traditions suggest, glimpses gained through reincarnation, memories of past lives on other worlds.
These are profound possibilities. Of course, we have to acknowledge again, remote viewing itself is controversial. It's often labeled fringe science, while proponents like Joseph McMonigle, who is actually part of Stargate, claimed remarkable accuracy in many sessions.
The official verdict was different.
The official verdict from a 1995 CIA Commission report by the American Institutes for Research was ultimately that remote viewing hadn't been proven to work by a psychic mechanism, and crucially, hadn't provided information that was actually used operationally for intelligence gathering.
So, officially, it didn't work reliably enough.
However, it's important to add, another reviewer involved in that same assessment, Edwin May, who was more sympathetic to the research, argued that the statistical results were significant and did constitute evidence of genuine psychic functioning, even if it wasn't operationally useful at the time. So even the official assessment wasn't entirely unified.
Ambiguous, then.
Very. But regardless of scientific validation or the lack thereof, you can't deny that these accounts, these remote viewing reports, they tap into something deep within us. Our primal curiosity about the hidden history of the cosmos. They hint at a truth potentially far stranger, far more profound than we can easily grasp with our current tools. A truth that might only be accessible through channels we're only just beginning to understand, or perhaps rediscover.
Okay, so we've explored these anomalies, these ancient myths, these psychic glimpses. Let's take a breath and step back for a moment. Let's consider the mainstream scientific consensus. The widely accepted narrative for how our solar system formed and evolved. Because it is a robust framework, right? Built on decades, centuries of observation and rigorous research. And it does offer coherent explanations for many of the things we've discussed. It provides the baseline.
Absolutely. It's crucial to understand the standard scientific picture. When it comes to the Kuiper Belt, for instance, mainstream science posits it formed from that leftover solar nebula material, the dust and gas around the young sun, that just didn't manage to clump together into larger planets. It remained as these icy planetesimals.
The building blocks that never got built.
Exactly. And its structure, the way the objects are distributed, is largely understood as being shaped by planetary migration, especially Neptune's outward journey early in the solar system's history. Neptune's gravity would have swept through the region, scattering objects, capturing some in resonances, and generally sculpting the belt into the shape we see today.
And the Kuiper Cliff. That sudden edge.
That's still an active area of research, admittedly, but the theories being worked on include things like the primordial disk simply being truncated, maybe it just ran out of material beyond that point, or perhaps undetected super Plutos, larger than Pluto but too faint to see yet, are influencing the dynamics out there. Or even that photoevaporation from intense radiation from nearby massive stars back when the sun was forming in a stellar cluster blew away the outer gas disk early on, preventing planet formation further out.
Plausible explanations within the standard model. And what about Mars? Its weird features.
Well, the thin atmosphere is generally attributed to a combination of factors. Solar winds stripping over billions of years, gradually eroding the atmosphere because Mars lacks a strong global magnetic field like Earth to protect it. Plus, its lower gravity just makes it easier for atmospheric gases to escape into space.
And Valles Marineris, that giant canyon.
That's understood primarily as a massive tectonic feature. A huge rift valley, basically a crack in the Martian crust that widened over geological time due to internal stresses, maybe linked to the formation of the nearby Tharsis volcanic bulge, not necessarily a single impact scar.
Okay, and the difference between the northern and southern hemispheres.
That's explained by a complex history of varied geological processes, different rates of volcanic activity, erosion, and crucially, impacts over billions of years. There's also a leading hypothesis involving a very large, very early impact that might have preferentially stripped crust from the northern hemisphere, creating the crustal dichotomy.
And the moons, Phobos and Deimos, still captured asteroids in the standard view.
That's still the most widely accepted explanation, yes. Their irregular shapes and compositions closely resemble certain types of asteroids, particularly those found in the outer asteroid belt. However, it's fair to say some recent studies propose alternative ideas, like maybe they formed from debris ejected during a giant impact on Mars itself, similar to how our moon is thought to have formed. So even within the mainstream, there's ongoing debate and refinement.
Okay, and the other planetary oddities. Venus spinning backwards, Uranus on its side.
Those are primarily explained by large-scale collisions during the very chaotic early solar system. It was a shooting gallery back then, with large planetesimals and protoplanets smashing into each other. Such massive impacts could absolutely have imparted enough energy and angular momentum to drastically alter a planet's spin or tilt.
Violent beginnings.
Very violent beginnings are part of the standard model. And Pluto's strange orbit. That's understood as a consequence of its gravitational interactions with Neptune, particularly getting locked into what's called a mean motion resonance with Neptune during Neptune's outward migration phase, as described by models like the NICE model. These models provide quite elegant explanations using known physics and observational constraints.
And finally, planetnine in the mainstream view.
It remains purely a hypothetical concept for now. Its existence is inferred indirectly from the gravitational effects it seems to have on the orbits of that specific cluster of very distant Kuiper Belt objects. It hasn't been directly observed. So the search continues, firmly grounded in analyzing astronomical data and orbital dynamics, using advanced telescopes and sophisticated computer models to predict where it might be and what it might look like.
So the scientific picture is constantly evolving.
Absolutely. And while many mysteries definitely remain out there, science is continuously refining our understanding. We get new data from incredible missions like New Horizons, which actually flew past a Kuiper Belt object called Arrokoth, giving us unprecedented close-up views of one of these primordial bodies. And our computational models get better and better, allowing us to simulate billions of years of cosmic evolution with increasing accuracy. The sheer vastness of space guarantees there's always more to learn, more to uncover. And the scientific method itself, with its emphasis on evidence, testing, and peer review, allows us to constantly challenge and refine our hypotheses as new data comes in. It pushes the boundaries of what we know, even as it occasionally throws up anomalies that hint at, well, perhaps what we might have forgotten.
So after exploring all of this, the anomalies, the myths, the scientific views, what does it all mean for us? As we sit here peering into the depths of space, listening to these faint, strange echoes from the past, we're left with some profound questions, aren't we?
We really are.
Is our enduring fascination with Mars, for example, that pull it has on us, its desolate beauty, the whispers of a past that feels almost familiar? Is it more than just scientific curiosity? Is it more than just wanting to explore? Could it be something deeper?
Could it be a kind of remembrance? A deep-seated, perhaps collective, yearning for something lost? It raises this almost existential question, doesn't it? Are we, in our modern drive to explore and maybe even colonize a new world like Mars, are we unknowingly attempting to return to an old one?
Returning home.
Returning to a broken home, maybe. A home from a cataclysmic past where ancient memories of a lost world, a lost civilization, perhaps still linger in the cosmic dust, somehow calling us back across the vastness of time. The thought is, well, it's both haunting and incredibly exhilarating.
And the Kuiper Belt. Maybe it's not just a random collection of icy debris after all. Maybe we should see it as this vast scar tissue, a cosmic testament to an event so monumental it fundamentally reshaped our entire solar system, leaving this echoing void where a vibrant world might once have spun.
While Mars, perhaps once a thriving moon of that lost world, now orbits as this shattered mirror reflecting a forgotten history. A broken home, orbiting alone.
The truth. Maybe it's been hidden in plain sight all along, etched into the very planets themselves, whispered in our oldest stories. Perhaps it's still out there, just waiting for us to fully remember it, to piece it all back together.
That's it for this journey beyond the known. If the unknown calls to you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow. There's so much more waiting to be discovered.